Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We return to the Matrix. Ah, yes, after Tim Walz was dishonorably discharged by J.D. Vance in the vice presidential debate, all types of gaslighting was done afterwards. The mainstream media quickly focused on Trump instead of the vice presidential debate massacre. A walking corpse has got out of the grave to voice its opinion, and Kamala Harris once again gets a celebrity to do the heavy lifting for her. But let's focus on that walking corpse for a moment. Old Joe has rolled out in his wheelchair to foreshadow that there will be problems on Election Day. Seems the Walking Dead still thinks he's alive and president. That was like 100 years ago. Just go lay back down in your coffin. Quote, Biden says he's concerned election won't be peaceful after Trump and Vance comments. Unquote. Wait, is he even qualified to speak on this? I mean, where the hell have you been in the last 4 months or so? Oh, he's been sneaking in executive orders to just dump more illegal immigrants into the country amidst the border crisis as we speak. Good job, Brandon. You deserve another 4 years. If you live that long, who knows what tricks so-called Dr. Jill has up her sleeve. Quote, President Joe Biden on Friday expressed concern the 2024 election will not be peaceful, depending on the outcome, citing recent comments from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I'm confident it will be free and fair, Biden told reporters as he made a surprise appearance at the White House press briefing. I don't know whether it will be peaceful. Okay, let me tell you what Bernie Lomax is actually saying. We have a translator of fuckery. Quote, I'm confident we can cheat in the election for Harris and get the vote. But Trump and his supporters know we cheated to get it, and they'll protest the election results. I mean, look, we got away with it before, so I think our chances of getting away with it this time are better, especially with a young, smart, charismatic Harris. Look, when's the last time you had a black woman who was like mainstream, smart, articulate? The American voters identify with stuff like that. You know, it speaks to history, and we love to make history. Unquote. In case you don't remember, this is how he described former President Obama at the time. Quote, the things that Trump has said and the things that he said last time out when he didn't like the outcome were very dangerous. I noticed that the vice presidential Republican candidate did not say he would accept the outcome of the election. They haven't even accepted the outcome of the last election. So I am concerned about what they're going to do. Unquote. Bernie Lomax is trying damage control invisible to the American people at this point. The reason they use 2020 as a weapon is because they have that guilty conscience. Although Trump talks about it now and then, he's focused on the current election while the left is literally using that election in presidential debates. Also, the hypocrisy of this issue is once again why Democrats always shoot themselves in the feet. Hillary Clinton did the exact same thing, and she actually claimed that a foreign government rigged the election in Donald Trump's favor. She didn't concede defeat. She didn't accept the results of the election. It doesn't matter about how she relayed that message as a presidential candidate. She rejected the results of the election. So if she were actually the president and lost against Trump, Clinton would say the same thing, perhaps even more firm. When you lose, you call the American people who voted for your opponent a basket of deplorables. Yes, she is insulting millions of American citizens. Just because she was butthurt, she didn't get that power package of becoming the first female president. Even Trump hasn't insulted the voters for Hillary, nor the voters for Bernie Lomax. Says a lot, doesn't it? There was an investigation into that, and there was no evidence it happened. Now, there were reports that there was election interference by Russians, but where was the actual evidence that they did, in fact, interfere with the election? There was smoke and mirrors, basically. Now, to really dig into this, let's look at a screenshot that the crooked Adam Schiff presented in the investigation. Oh, let's zoom in a bit and get a closer look at the so-called evidence of Russia election interference. Okay, Facebook, from June 2015 to August 2017, 3,393 advertisements on the site, purchased by Russian IRA, which stands for Internet Research Agency, okay? 11.4 million American users who saw a Russian IRA advertisement on the site. 120 pages built by Russian IRA, 470 Russian IRA associated accounts on the site, 80,000 plus content posted on Russian IRA pages, 126 million American users who likely saw content from a Russian IRA page. Okay, that's for Facebook. Let's look over to Twitter. From September 1st through November 15th of 2016, 36,746 Russian-linked bot accounts tweeting about election, 1.4 million tweets by Russian bots during the period, 288 million views of Russian bot tweets during the period, 2,752 Russian IRA human-coordinated Twitter handles identified, 131,000 tweets by Russian IRA accounts during the period. Now, on both of these websites, has any of this investigative work resulted in proof that those Russians interfered in the election? Such as tampering with voting machines, hacking into the computer systems. Is there anything there? Negative. Is there any evidence that those Russians promoted Donald Trump? Is there any evidence that any of those accounts and activity supported Trump in the election? Negative. Because it would be on that goddamn board. Remember, this same Adam Schiff not only committed perjury, along with former FBI Director James Comey, who both protected Hillary Clinton, who also committed perjury during the Benghazi controversy. She got away with perjury, which is a federal offense, and she also got away with crimes for which she was summoned to testify for, and we can associate it with espionage or treason. Of course, this was one of the key points in the debate about Clinton wiping her server clean after the leaks came out. So, smoke and mirrors. And this was used as evidence that Russia interfered in the election, basically claiming that Trump was elected due to election interference from Russia. Yet there was no proof of election interference, no proof of voter fraud, no proof any Russian spy or hacker interfered in the election that resulted in a Trump victory. It was flat out Hillary Clinton getting booted off stage for being a crooked politician, and that resonated with the American people. It's that simple. But Democrats have kept 2020 in the conversation more as a way to convince the American people that if Trump doesn't win, he would somehow strong-arm the presidency with his MAGA and white nationalists army behind him. Nice script for a movie, but if he was this threatening, why wasn't he successfully impeached for the very same charges brought against him? Because the courts ruled in his favor. I mean, wouldn't they see it the same way as Congress and all the other talking heads who push that narrative? But when Democrats accuse, you place those accusations upon them. They project well mastering the art of gaslighting. The magic pixie dust has worked in the past. Not this time. But lo and behold, guess who came out and snitched on herself? Nancy Pelosi. The Wicked Witch from the West took responsibility for not having the National Guard at the Capitol Hill the day of the so-called insurrection. Trump offered the assistance, she denied it, and as a result, a riot. Oh yeah, they tried to add so-called context to her admission. But Trump wasn't physically there. You were, with your fellow Congress members. You knew it was a massive election. She denied the help, basically saying it was too late to send them. Yeah, never mind that they could come in and do their job. It's too late to arrest people and clear the crowds out. It should have never happened. Yeah, in other words, I wanted them to storm the Capitol to justify the narrative that it was Trump's inciting of violence that led to it. And of course, you had theories that the individuals committing the violence were actually anti-Trump groups such as Antifa and BLM posing as Trump supporters, and that Pelosi and Capitol Police just let them take over for a political attack against Trump. There's substantial evidence to support that theory, So when Bernie Lomax says he doesn't think it will be peaceful, he's correct. It won't be peaceful either way. We stated this early on. If Trump wins, there will be protests and riots. If Harris wins, there will be protests and riots. But, I mean, come on, one has a record of doing what he proposed to do, while the other has contributed to the problems the very voters struggled with for years. But Bernie Lomax is claiming that if Kamala Harris wins, it will be 2020 all over again. But see, while they're focused on Trump so much, how will a Kamala Harris administration avoid the failures that will follow? I noticed Kamala Harris has gone silent all of a sudden. Apparently, she's not being asked about Tim Walz's performance. Oh, let me guess. She's preoccupied with the hurricane relief. Yeah, if you say so. Now, we didn't mention something in the prior episode regarding a comment or gaffe, as they call it, that Walz made. He stated he became friends with school shooters. Now, of course, everyone knew he meant he became friends with the victim families of school shooters. But then again, if he's signing executive orders to allow infants that survived botched abortions to basically be murdered afterwards, I mean, who knows what's in that guy's head? ABC News has a funny headline, quote, Harris dunks on Trump and Vance at Flint rally with an assist from Magic Johnson, unquote. Now, before we even get into this article, Harris is constantly saying she will put middle-class families first, and I'm going to work for the working class, and we need to help middle-class workers. Here's the problem with this rhetoric. First, you might want to change your language to just helping the American citizens instead of dividing them into groups. Just say, you'll help bring down costs for the nation. That covers the entire nation, from lower class, middle class, and even upper class. When you speak in a way that focuses on a specific group or class, it creates policies that are focused on what group. And even more, the middle class shouldn't be your focus, any politicians for that matter. The middle class makes up a large percentage of the workforce, they make up a large percentage of the economy, but they generally are more financially stable. The group you should focus on, if there is a specific group, would be the lower class. They are the ones who struggle to pay their bills from month to month. They are the ones who can't afford a new vehicle, who don't have the same, quote, access to capital. They are the ones who face evictions at a higher rate than any other group. It's simple. Propose tax cuts to the American people, and don't try to conflate tax credits, child tax credits, small business loans as a form of tax cuts for the American people. Literally propose tax cuts like the previous administration proposed and then carried out. And the results from that is everyone from the lower class to the upper class were better off financially. But you can't propose tax cuts to the nation because you don't actually care. Because if you did care, then it would have already been done. $391 billion in climate change, $118 billion in a phony border security bill, which made up less than 25% of the spending. A whopping $1.7 trillion proposed economic plan, and not one single statement saying Harris will give the American people tax cuts on their take-home income. It's the sleight of hand, of course, framing things in a way where it seems the American people will benefit from the plan, when in reality all she will do is increase inflation, increase unemployment, legalize marijuana, legalize prostitution, and legalize illegal immigration. Apparently, she also has recently proposed billions of dollars to HBCUs. Yeah, right. You had 3.5 years alongside old Joe to do that very thing. The first thing this administration did was halt construction of the border wall, which now Harris somehow thinks is a good idea, signed executive orders that benefited legal and illegal immigration, allowed those same people to be included on the United States Census, including having access to local and state government assistance, racial inequity nonsense, which led to a DEI secret service that almost got a former president assassinated. The FBI is full of DEI hires, proposed billions of dollars for climate change, lifting travel bans of nations that Trump enforced, which we'd suggest has increased national security threats. Now, in all of those executive orders signed in the first 100 days of this administration, there was nothing in those proposals and bills being signed that included tax cuts for American citizens. The increase in jobs was misleading, especially due to the fact that old Joe lied about it. Also, you had the pandemic recovery, so that naturally brought back jobs. But also, the actual jobs the administration created were, you guessed it, government jobs. Most of the jobs were public sector jobs, such as hiring close to 90,000 new IRS employees, thousands of new FBI agents. We've seen some of those new FBI agents, no offense, but they look like their last job was a cashier at Walmart. The government is just giving regular Joes and Janes agency jobs, like handing out Halloween candy to the neighborhood runts. This made up the bulk of those jobs, not private sector job growth. Climax changed job creation. Again, public sector jobs. In fact, I would say that's where a lot of the money went. There's a lot of deception and criminal activity going on here. $391 billion pledged to Climax change. I would assume that some of that was to create jobs, to, quote, tackle the Climax crisis. So you have offices set up in various parts of the country, running around doing environmental research, blah, blah, blah. It's 2024. They act like they just landed on Earth and are exploring life or some shit. In other words, if you haven't solved that problem by now, which has been researched and studied for who knows how long now, then obviously you're missing the bus. But here's where we know that Harris can't detach herself from old Joe, because she approved of those executive orders being signed. Remember, the vice president is often a deciding vote and has veto power to stop a bill from being passed. Let's look at what this administration focused on the most. As you see, these are the reversals and other executive actions that the administration carried out. Of course, the Clover virus is at the top with 13 executive orders. But look at immigration, 10 reversals to what Trump had passed. Then you have equity focused on more than the economy and the environment and national security, healthcare, labor, ethics, and regulations. Now, it's not that the executive actions colored in gray didn't need to be adjusted as to why there is a small number of actions taken. It's the administration didn't focus on those categories, more so than immigration and equity. What did immigration and equity result in? Mass immigration with illegal immigrants running around terrorizing communities, and DEI hires who failed to protect a former president. The top 3 issues for voters are the economy, immigration, and foreign policy. Don't believe it's abortion, because it's not. It may be 4th or 5th on the list. I mean, healthcare is 8th on the list, behind other. So whatever other is, that has more priority than healthcare. So the first 3 issues, this administration has failed in all categories, including Kamala Harris as vice president and presidential candidate. So everything you are hearing in the news, panel discussions, is nothing but a collective effort of gaslighting. But let's continue with the article. Quote, Vice President Kamala Harris dunked on former President Donald Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, particularly on the auto industry, at her rally Friday night, with an assist from NBA star and Michigan native Magic Johnson. The sports analogy is more like Magic Johnson passed her the ball and she wasn't looking, and the basketball bounced off her head, and the team lost the game with that embarrassing turnover. Just a quick jab. Quote, when it came to building the cars of the future, Donald Trump sat on the sidelines and let China dominate, and then he talks down to American workers saying we can't compete with Chinese workers, Harris said. And make no mistake, Donald Trump is no friend of labor. Unquote. This is like high school. Everyone at that rally knows damn well Kamala Harris is lying. But because they don't like Trump, the lies just become truth to them. They don't care that their lives were better in the Trump administration. They don't care that the very person standing in front of them is the cause of their financial hardships. I mean, think about that. They have to be insane, right? Here you have a vice president who has literally flooded the country with illegal immigrants, participated in mass inflation that has driven prices up for everything, and those people are cheering her on like she's a new presidential candidate they have never fucking seen before. Hello? That person is partly responsible for your hardships. Heck, some may have lost their jobs, mortgage hiked. We know they're paying a crap load more for groceries and gas. It's insanity. Quote, Harris's attacks focused on what she said was her rival's unkept promises on manufacturing and putting Michigan auto jobs at risk, something her campaign attacked Trump on the same topic in a digital ad launched last month. The vice president also highlighted comments that Vance made earlier this week about whether the Trump administration would honor a $500 million grant going to General Motors to convert a Lansing plant to make electric vehicles. Quote, so 2 days ago, Donald Trump running mate suggested that if Trump wins, he might let the Grand River Assembly plant in Lansing close down, the same plant that our administration helped save earlier this year, along with 650 union jobs, Harris said. Michigan, we together fought hard for those jobs, and you deserve a president who won't put them at risk. Okay, let's just continue. In Michigan, Trump is running an ad targeting auto workers, accusing Harris of wanting to end all gas-powered cars and force Americans to drive electric vehicles. Harris shot back Friday night, quote, let us be clear, contrary to what my opponent is suggesting, I will never tell you what kind of car you have to drive, Harris said. But here's what I will do. I will invest in communities like Flint, unquote. Oh, but you will tell a Catholic church that if they don't perform an abortion, they will be sued. Oh, okay, I got it. Or what about your running mate, who literally signed a law that allows the government to come into a home and kidnap someone's child, all because they don't want them identifying as the opposite gender. Oh, but you'll never force Americans to drive a certain car. But let's continue. Quote, asked by the Detroit Free Press on Wednesday whether Trump would honor or cancel the Biden administration grant, Vance didn't give an answer. Quote, first of all, the $500 million grant came along with some really ridiculous strings and no protections for American jobs, not getting shipped to foreign countries. Because a lot of not just the cars themselves, but the battery components, the minerals, this stuff is all produced in China. And so when we write massive checks on American taxpayer expense to these companies, a lot of times what we're doing is selling American middle-class jobs to the communists Chinese. And we ought to be doing exactly the opposite, Vance told the Detroit Free Press. We ought to be rebuilding the American middle class and investing in our own workers, not shipping our tax dollars off to electric vehicles made in China, Vance added. Unquote. This is the same bullshit Democrats did with the so-called border security bill, which there was only $20 billion towards it, out of $118 billion. You had the Inflation Reduction Act, which old Joe himself admitted it should have been called what it was, which was the Climax Change Burning Money Act. And here you have a grant for $500 million for the auto industry. But of course, it comes with conditions. That condition is to produce electric vehicles. It's not to just help the auto industry in general, it is based on their political ideology. Here's a statement from The Walking Dead from the briefing room regarding this sham. Quote, "Building a clean energy economy can and should be a win-win for union auto workers and automakers. This investment will create thousands of good-paying union manufacturing jobs and retain even more from Lansing, Michigan to Fort Valley, Georgia, by helping auto companies retool, reboot, and rehire in the same factories and communities. This delivers on my commitment to never give up on the manufacturing communities and workers that were left behind by my predecessor, and are now making a comeback with the support of my policies, including the conversion grants my administration is announcing today. These grants will help ensure the future of the auto industry is made in American by American union workers. I'll never stop fighting for the American auto industry and American auto workers." Unquote. Complete nonsense. Conversion grants? Does anyone know what a conversion grant is? We never heard of it until now, but it's self-explanatory. I'll translate the fuckery anyway. For you to get this $500 million to save your auto manufacturing, you'll have to agree to convert to electric auto manufacturing. If not, you get no money. Do we have a deal? Yep, when Democrats give you money, they're not really giving it to you. It's like a $500 million blank check written to the auto industry, if you put it into perspective. Dig even deeper. Convert most auto manufacturing to about 50% production of electric vehicles, and that's the start of forcing Americans to drive electric cars, as Trump stated. Combine that with old Joe and Kamala Harris saying they want to ban fracking for natural gas and oil, then you are literally forcing Americans to drive electric vehicles, because in their vision, that's what will be on the market sold in the United States. Okay, just another loaded and deceptive plan that they're trying to make the Trump ticket look as if they don't support the auto industry. Slick, but not slick enough. You need more WD-40. Let's continue, as the magic pixie dust is being sprinkled on the zombies by none other than Magic Johnson. Yep. Quote, "Nobody's going to outwork her. She's committed to you as the people, United States, the people of Michigan. She's committed to you," Johnson said. "She's going to be a president for everybody, not just illegal immigrants and wacky woke liberals." Oh, wait. Sorry, he didn't say that. "And one thing she's going to do is finally unite us, bring us together, lower grocery prices, lower gas prices, secure our border, build stronger families, decrease the abortion rate in the Black community, because our children are the future." Sorry. That other party is trying to tear us down. Unquote. It's embarrassing for Magic Johnson to even utter those words. That other party is trying to tear us down. Why create such tribalism? I thought the Black vote wasn't a monolith. Why won't you allow people to decide for themselves if that other party is trying to tear them down? Doesn't seem like Black men such as yourself feel that way, right? Quote, "But the 5-time NBA Finals champion took time to directly address Black men." Oh wow, funny how that's who he refers to next. A demographic whose support for Democrats has softened. Softened? It was never really there, my friend. Black women make up 90% of the Black vote. Black men never supported Democrats. Anyway, quote, "There's a lot of Black men in here." I don't mean to not talk to other people, but this is important, Johnson said. "Our Black men, we've got to get them out to vote. That's number one," unquote. Okay, so he has just insulted Black men. Put it into context. Magic Johnson knows that Black men support Donald Trump overwhelmingly. They have no interest in the Democratic Party nor their candidates. He claims the Republican Party is trying to tear down the Black community, and Black men need to stop voting for them right now and come back to their roots. Democrats. The Harris campaign uses a Black athlete who is a Black man to resonate with black men because she has nothing to say to them, and it only magnifies that she has no connection to the very culture she is trying to attach herself to as influence for the black vote. Not working, Madam Vice President, but he goes on with more magic pixie dust. Quote, Kamala's opponent promised a lot of things last time to the black community that he did not deliver on, Johnson said. Johnson added, and we got to make sure black men understand that. You see? An insult to black men, right in their faces. Do you know what black men understand? They understand that it's Democrats who promise a lot of things to the black community, only to leave them out in the cold after they get their votes. Everyone knows it, Magic Johnson knows it, the black men and women in the crowd knows it, and Kamala Harris not only knows it, but she's literally doing it in real time at the rally. Anywho, so that's why I'm here, to make sure I help black men understand. First, get out and vote, because your votes can help challenge the black men that are voting for Trump, and then vote for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris. Unquote. Okay, it's official. Magic Johnson is a dumbass. How pathetic he sounds, begging black men to vote for Kamala Harris. Hey buddy, if they haven't decided to vote for her by now, then they're probably not going to vote. No black man is undecided about these two choices. One candidate did help the black community. The next administration tried to copy what he did to make it appear they care, but fell on their faces in the process. Drove prices up for every American citizen. A vice president sounds like a mumbling, bumbling, incoherent airhead who was essentially running the country. Mind you, old Joe keeps reiterating that Harris was with him every step of the way. He wants to make it a point that the policies of this administration was a partnership, not a one-man show. She is stuck with him, till death do them part. Which kinda explains the circumstance for black women as well. Because they decided to marry the Democratic Party, so they will be with them till the end. Black men, on the other hand, have always been free agents in the political matrix. And the scarier thing about it is there is a large percentage of younger black men who have turned their backs on Democrats. And once they started to gravitate to Trump and even the Republican Party, Democrats knew it spelled trouble. They never had their support really, but it's the optics of it. So of course, let's throw Magic Johnson out there and tell black men they need to understand that voting for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party is, it means you're black, right? That's what old Joe said. It's just in Magic Johnson's voice and a different Democrat. Hey, my brothers, I gotta tell you, you need to understand this. If you have a problem choosing between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, then you ain't a black man. Yep, it's the same rhetoric, the same philosophy, and the same ideology that has emotionally manipulated the black community for ages. Sure, there's personal accountability, but the magic pixie dust does work. You see, bringing in a celebrity to talk about social political issues to the black community gives that celebrity credibility. I know, it actually is the complete opposite in most cases. But to a group of people who acknowledge that celebrity status, they see success. They see someone who is, quote, reaching out to them, so on and so on. It's an emotional tactic used, and Democrats use this very well. Keep in mind, LBJ said what the plan was to have black people voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Why do you think he could predict such a thing? Because the Democrats studied the black culture. They understand that how to trigger emotion. Emotion, something that one sex has more of than the other. Women and black women support that party, and black men don't, because in the context, men are not as emotional. So if you take away the emotional attachment to Democrats, you end up with black men not being moved by any of the candidates thrown out there. Also, black men are not into identity politics. Heck, most men in general aren't. But black men as a whole do not adhere to the United States being a white supremacist nation. And this is why you have more black men voting for Trump. And this is something that Magic Johnson can't change, no matter how many flashy passes he makes to the airhead. And if Magic Johnson wasn't a desperate attempt at pulling in black men, Obama tries to ensure that his historical status will have an impact on those black men. Don't think so, but let's examine. Quote, Barack Obama comes to Kamala Harris's aid as she lags with black voters. Former President Barack Obama will be campaigning for Vice President Kamala Harris in key battleground states in the run-up to Election Day, a move that could give her campaign a boost with black voters as she fails to match President Joe Biden's 2020 figures. Okay, complete derp tardation. Two glaring issues here. Obama didn't endorse her prior. Nope. It was only until the DNC that they chose to go ahead and endorse Harris. But before that, they sat back very quiet, never publicly complimenting her for her job as vice president. And even when she was initially so-called nominated, they still didn't speak out. So Obama didn't think she was qualified, and he didn't think she was the best nominee in the Democratic Party. That's just the truth. Then if Kamala Harris, a woman of color, isn't getting more support, or at least matching the support that old Joe got, an old white man, how bad does it have to be for a woman of color to lack support from the black community compared to an old white man who has insulted that very black community? I mean, it contradicts the whole identity politics, right? What happened to lifting up people of color and white people kind of, step to the side and let someone else have some power? Insanity. Let's continue, though. The Harris campaign said Obama, who served as president from 2009 to 2017, will travel around the country to rally voters for the final 27 days before the election, starting with a trip to Pittsburgh on Thursday. The announcement of Obama's plans to hit the campaign trail came as polls have shown Harris, while still having the support of the majority of black voters, is lagging behind Biden's 2020 margins with the key demographic. Wait, misleading. Harris has the support of black women and some of the black youth. But the lag is coming from no support from black men who perhaps voted for Biden, and some of every demographic in the black community has decided to vote for Trump this election cycle. So she not only has no support from black men, gradual decline from the black youth, and even sprinkles of black women have detached themselves from the Democratic Party. Anywho, CNN's latest poll found Harris is leading former President Donald Trump by a wide margin, 79% to 16%. Again, misleading. It is black women who are creating that wide margin. I think we've already pointed that out. But that's what the article is about, right? Black men. Black voters were crucial to Biden's victory in 2020 when 92% voted for him and 8% backed Trump, according to the Pew Research Center. What are they? Fucking stupid. Do they think the people are stupid? 92%? They are using the black woman's vote and misrepresenting it as an overwhelming support of the black community. You see? Latasha Brown already exposed the play. Choose a black woman as vice president, and you get the black vote. She even stated that old Joe was dead in the water without the black vote. So what does that tell you? It tells you he didn't stand a chance against Trump, unless there was an ultimatum given to him by Black Votes Matter, who rallied the troops to vote for him due to picking a black woman as vice president. Ironically, they didn't even support Harris as the Democratic presidential candidate that same election cycle. Bonkers. Let's continue. Quote, Obama, the nation's first black president, remains popular with the Democratic base, and his efforts in the closing weeks of the campaign could encourage undecided black voters to turn out for Harris. Who would be the first black woman, the first Asian American, and the first South Asian American to be elected as president? Okay, none of that history matters if American citizens can't afford groceries and gas. Again, though, all of that, and she was dropped like a bad habit in her presidential campaign, so none of it matters when she was standing on her own running for president. Quote, that could be significant in what polls show is set to be a tight race that could be decided by small margins in swing states like Georgia and Pennsylvania. Unquote. That's enough. You know why they're claiming this is a tight race? Because it will justify the so-called win Harris will have. It would look convincing that she edges Trump out in a so-called tight race. We know your games, Democrats. You can't fool us. And even more, the very same states that rigged the election for Biden. Yep, it all comes down to those corrupt elected officials, showing poll workers literally scanning ballots multiple times through the machine, just flat out committing election fraud. And somehow they got the greenbacks by filing a defamation lawsuit against the Trump legal team. Kamala Harris will cheat no matter what because black men are definitely not getting involved in that fuckery. Seems the reliable black woman is willing to help her make it through. And speaking of that, let's look into her education. Let's see here. It says she graduated from Westmount High School. Okay. Earned degree in political science and economics from Howard University. Are you kidding me? Economics? For someone who couldn't articulate what inflation was. Let's see. Either she coasted her way through college by joining a sorority who will definitely help you earn a degree and land a high-paying job, or she is a mastermind who pretends to know nothing, all the while smiling and cackling her way to becoming potentially the next president of the United States. And then all hell would break loose. Heck, in either scenario, all hell would break loose. But I'm going to go with the first scenario, because I've examined enough of her speech, and her vocabulary, and her lack of articulation proves she's just not that smart. But who needs to be smart when you're a DEI hire? This is the chaos sector.